and you don't believe a duff in plan A, that you're now got the insurance policy of plan B, you're never going to get plan A.
Looking back at that chapter of Al's life, what kept you going when it seemed like nothing was certain at all?
We all desperately want to try to control that which we have never owned in life. When you walk out there, you're now competing for the most valuable resource on earth, which is attention. You've got to capture. Now you've got to keep it, and now you've got to be able to monetize it. Because you can't make money alone. You can't dance by yourself. I made a career, I made a lot of money out of convincing millions of people that I could knock another human being unconscious with a plastic head. If you're always in the same story, you never get to make a new one.
Today on the You Potential podcast, I'm thrilled to be joined by Al Snow. He's a longtime professional wrestler, an author, the owner of the Ohio Valley Wrestling Company. Al's been in the wrestling business for more than 4 decades. Yeah, that's over 40 years. And while many people know Al from the head days in the WWF, what really stood out to me in this conversation was how thoughtfully he talks about the power of our beliefs, having an identity, and reinvention, both inside the ring and in his life. This conversation isn't just about wrestling. It's about how to keep going when life feels uncertain, and we all know that happens a lot. Al shares what a career built without a safety net taught him about staying true to himself even when it's uncertain, and letting go of old stories to find the courage to move forward and continuing towards his dream of being a professional wrestler. This is a fascinating conversation, and I hope you're going to enjoy it. Before you head off to the conversation though, please subscribe to our YouTube channel or wherever you listen to your podcast. While you're at it, leave us a review. And now, I hope you enjoy this fascinating conversation with Al Snow.
Al, welcome to the show.
Well, thank you very much for having me.
I'm excited to chat about your journey, your book, and all the fascinating things that I've read about you, and I remember watching you on TV as a kid. So before we get into your journey, I'm curious, if a world existed where you could not select Al as one of your favorite all-time wrestlers,
Sure.
who would you say is your favorite all-time wrestler?
Man, that's a bit of a challenge. There are quite a few that I like for lots of different reasons that appealed to me at different points and times. And to just pick one sometimes is really difficult, you know. Uh,
It's like
uh,
picking your favorite child.
yeah, it's well, I mean, I got 6 of them, so I could pick one of them, I guess. But it is tough. I mean, because uh, all of them, again, like I said, have an appeal at a different point in time for different reasons. Some based on their believability, some based on their showmanship, some based on their sense of humor and their ability to entertain. Uh, yeah, so yeah, it's not like a cut and dry. Oh, just this one guy. He's the thing. He's exactly the one that I want to be. It's very tough. And at my age, I've got a large surface area, so to speak, of different wrestlers over different decades, different styles, you know, and also because of being a student of it, watching various different styles from Mexico to Great Britain to Germany to Japan. Different guys, different appeals for different reasons.
Al, I feel like your answer was spot on.
Hmm.
And the reason why, as I look at wrestling, I really do see it, and I want to get your opinion on this, as an art. And so, with art, you can't, like, there's so much nuance, and you just explained this from different cultures, different reasons, performance, etc. Rick Rubin, he is a big wrestling fan.
Yeah.
And He has a quote here. I'm going to hand the mic back over to you. And it says, professional wrestling is the purest form of performance art. It's a morality play, good versus evil, played out in real time in front of a live audience. With all that nuance, I think you're right. You can't pick one.
I've heard other people compare it to performance art, and I guess in a way it is, but really for me, it's an art form without a question or a doubt. It's the art of physical storytelling within the context of a competitive situation. It's more about that than it is about a morality play, about creating a structure of rules, and we all operate under the precept of, you fight, but you fight fair. You don't sucker punch somebody. Well, let's be honest, there's never, ever a real fair fight. But when others don't fight fair, then they're not admired. They're not the hero of the story. They're the villain because they didn't fight fair. And so when you have that context, of course, because something always has to be at stake in order to have a consequence, and that consequence has to have gravity. And that gravity of that consequence within wrestling is if you don't win, you don't get paid, and, but then we add into the mix a little bit of more personal things. That's where the soap opera and the behavior backstage comes in. And it's no longer just about, oh, I think I'm better than you. It's, well, you kicked my mother down the stairs or punched my dog. And now, I've been wronged. So not only do I want to beat you, I want to beat you up. But once I beat you up, ultimately I want to beat you because by beating you proves I am.
It's fascinating. On that last part, I want to beat you up and prove I'm the better man. So these conflicts that, like you described, they're real. They're there. Yet you go into the ring and it's storytelling, as you said. How do you navigate that tension between I can't I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but I can't actually beat and kill the guy in the ring. I got to continue with the story. It's almost like you got all this tension, but you got to dance with it a little bit in the ring.
Yeah, you've got to be very self-aware, and you've got to be very aware of what it is you're selling to an audience. What's an audience wanting to buy when they purchase a ticket or they're tuning in? Let's just say that. Then why? What are you selling them? What are they investing in emotionally? Well, it's not in the physical act, because let's be honest, there are only, I counted up, I think there's only about 7 things we physically do that, the average person can physically relate to. They can relate to, and they can believe in. Most importantly, without a question or a doubt, they can believe in who you are. Because and this applies in life in general, if you can get people to believe in who you are, they'll believe in anything you say. And when I mean anything you say, and I mean anything you do. Case in point, just look at politicians. Um, and but then you now have to you've got to be able to be where the audience can believe in you, who you are. And now you've got to convince them of your intent, that you're out there, and that's what you're really selling. You're selling the idea, the intent behind what it is you're doing. And then whenever anything is done to you, the consequence of it, that it's not so much the physical pain of it as it is, oh my gosh, if this happens once more, I might not be able to get back to my feet and triumph or win the battle. And I might lose. So that's that. The more you can understand that, and the more you can communicate that, the more successful you're going to be. In
Wrestling,
so
wow. I mean, as you explain this, look, wrestling is incredible. Like the way you talk about the storytelling and having this belief in ourselves, universally, is a common human struggle to actually believe in myself and not see the negative flaws. But here you are in a ring, telling stories, doing incredible athletic gestures. Yet you're saying that's not the main attraction. It's communicating and selling to the crowd who you are through your belief, all in real time.
Yes.
With the nuance of what you're saying, you have these personal actual feuds.
Yes.
And as the listener or the viewer, we're like, this is remarkable. It's highly athletic. You're storytelling in real time. I don't know what's fake or real. I don't know if that feud is fake or real. And it like, as a viewer, it's like, it's kind of magic.
It can't be, you know, because to quote a famous promoter, Jerry Jarrett, you always want to tell just a little bit of the truth so that they'll believe any lie. And that's where you have to believe in you when you walk out there. Because if you, it's never a character. Wrestlers aren't actors. If they can be likened to actors, I guess you could say they're kind of more method actors, but really even that is a stretch because they're not taking on or adopting a personality aspect or a persona that's not really who they actually are deep down. It's who they really are with the volume turned way, way, way up, and they just let out. Because, like, let's face it, there's a part of you that if you had to not experience any repercussions, if you didn't have to worry about the fallout, how would that guy act? What would he say? How would he behave? And it might be a little more different than what you think it would be. And you know, you have to do that because much like stand-up, it's a live audience. And so they can sense, they can feel, they can see right through the bullshit. And if they can't believe in you, they're not going to believe in anything else. That is without a question or doubt, it is the number one thing that has to be done. They have to be able to believe in you. And it's crazy because it's such a weird dichotomous business in a lot of different ways that it's very ironic that in the sense that your responsibility, your job is to do one thing. And that is when you walk out there, you're now competing for the most valuable resource on earth, which is attention. You've got to capture, now you've got to keep it, and now you've got to be able to monetize it. And it's a tough job. But in order to do that, you've got to be out there, and your responsibility is to make yourself a star. Well, tonight, here's the dichotomy. You're going to need to be a star. We're going to need to make this other guy a bigger star. And you've got to be willing to do that business because for whatever reason at that time, that's the path of least resistance that allows all of us to achieve the monetization of that attention. So, now you're struggling. But at the same time, and that's where I try to remind a lot of the younger talent, because we have a lot of etiquette rules within the business seem really unnecessary. And, and believe me, when I broke in years ago, it was even more so adhered to because it was kind of like ran like the mop, and I didn't really understand a lot of the whys and the wherefores of it until as I've gotten older and I've got a little more perspective. And now I do understand because of that dichotomy of the nature of the business, that no one's bigger than the business. No one's a star without someone else, but yet you need to be a star. Okay. Well, that gets weird, but you can't be a star if you don't believe, but yet you can't believe so much that you now turn the others off that are now no longer willing to help you be that star. So, because you can't make money alone, you can't dance by yourself. So, in order for us to try to have some semblance of separation from that, that's why you always, the minute you show up at the building, you shake everyone's hand. You tell everyone hello. When you leave, you shake everyone's hand. You tell everyone goodbye. You tell everyone. It used to be so intently expressed, your appreciation, your gratitude for someone doing something for you that you told them thank you as you were pinning them. Literally, as you were in the middle of the ring, you whispered thank you. Uh, because it's a way for you, the performer, to go, okay, yeah, that's right. I got to remember I'm not all that I think I am, but I got to believe that I am all that I think I am, because if I don't believe all that I think I am, then no one else will either. So, and you got to, remember that, if you can't be the opening match without the main event, but you can't be the main event without the opening match. You can't win if someone's not willing to lose. You can't look like a star if someone's not willing to enable you to do so. And so that's where the irony comes in the dichotomy. And that's where the necessity of knowing those rules of etiquette that have been held for so long, why they were there, why they're such a necessity, because it's such a weird business. It's weird. You could be an actor, and we've all heard the stories, of actors or musicians who come in and act a certain way, behave a certain way, and and they get away with it because they're the draw. They're the thing that's what's bringing an audience to whatever it is, whatever project they're doing. We have those guys in the business, but we also have a lot of the rest of the locker room that now will put them in place, and we'll be like, now let's remember, and by the simple acts of shaking hands and saying thank you and showing that gratitude. It's crazy. So it's like every other form. I tell everybody, it's number one, it's like every other business, and it's like no other business. It's like every other entertainment business, and it's like no other entertainment business. It's just wacky. And it's a much kinder, gentler business now than, say, what I got into 40 some years ago, where it was a lot more closed, a lot more secular, and really a lot more ran like, when I watch mob movies, I'm like, oh, yeah, that reminds me of when I walked into a locker room and dealt with.
As you're explaining this, I mean, I've never been in a mob up here in Canada. However, it's never. It seems like there's a lot of respect for the system, the environment within the mob, and you're explaining this in the wrestling world, and it's interesting to hear you talk. But you're never bigger than the federation or the company, and I just hear a mutual level of respect amongst the whole ecosystem that helps it thrive, and yet it teaches, called the superstars, how to be humble. To your point, they're not a superstar without that opener, and if they're bigger than that, I'm sure the system will chew them up and spit them out
Eventually. Yeah. It's again, it's what's allowed it to survive and be maintained, is because you can never allow, there's no one spoke that's bigger than the wheel. And this will sound sacrilegious, but the best way I can play it, I don't know if you're religious. I'm not necessarily, but I don't infringe on anyone's faith or belief. But like Jesus is the most over babyface in the history of the world. You just can't get more over than Jesus. It's walked on water, cured the sick, healed the blind. Great high spots in the wrestling vernacular. But you can go to any, it's just a fact. You go into any Christian-based church or whatever, anywhere in the world, they're going to spend 2/3 of their time putting heat on Satan, because if Satan didn't have heat, then Jesus didn't grow money. So you can't do anything on your own. No matter how you tell a story, at the end of the day, remember, like what I said was that professional wrestling was the art of physical storytelling. Well, in any story, no matter what, whether you write it out, you act it out, you do a movie, you do a screenplay, you do television, whatever, verbally communicate, you have to have, first and foremost, you have to have a protagonist. In our vernacular, that's a babyface. Then you have to have an antagonist. That's the heel. Either it's an embodiment of a challenge or it's a person, place, or thing. Now there's a goal, and then there's a context of how the players are going to go through and achieve that goal, with the antagonist trying to prevent the protagonist, and you relating to that protagonist struggle, so that when the protagonist wins, you feel like you have as well.
Mhm. Yeah. Really, really interesting. Um, my mind is going down a couple different avenues. I want to go back to your story though. In the book, I thought it was just remarkable the amount of you open up the first couple chapters with rejection, humiliation, physical punishment, having to sell some cars, cut grass. You just seemed like you had this relentless refusal to quit. And I'm describing as you're trying to get into wrestling. Looking back at that chapter of Al's life, what kept you going when it seemed like nothing was certain at all?
I don't know. I just knew that I wanted to do it, and I felt like I was going to do it, and I didn't have a plan B. You know, there's some debate. There's some debate as far as that's concerned, in regards to, people will, advise you, well, if you're going to pursue something, you should always have a plan B. I don't think you should. And the reason I don't think you should is because if you don't believe enough in yourself, and you don't believe enough in plan A, that you're now got the insurance policy of plan B, you're never going to get plan A, because you're not put 100% into it.
I've never heard it framed that way. The insurance policy of Plan B. That's great.
Yeah. And well, you want to be secure, you want to be safe. I'm sorry, but one of the things I've learned in my life is that there is no such thing as security, and there is no such thing as safety. We all desperately want to try to control that which we have never owned in life. And I just figure we'll just go with it.
Hmm. How do you just go with it? Like, because, yeah, our brain just wants security, safety, but you're right.
Mhm.
Many times it's an illusion at best.
I do too. I mean, I want that as well. But, I mean, how do you get it? Sometimes I drive myself nuts, because I really come up with such esoteric questions that I don't have the answers to. For instance, what's success? Nobody's been able to give me an answer. I've asked that I don't know how many times, and no one can tell me. What's success? No one knows. But boy, we sure want it. Well, what is it?
Oof.
What's failure? How do you fail? If you're doing something that you've always wanted to do, and you decide, I don't want to do that no more, did you fail? Or did you just simply decide you wanted to go do something different? Uh, what's sacrifice? Every decision in your life is going to have a cost. You get nothing for free. It's going to cost you time, money, effort. It's going to cost you something. It's emotion. All right. Well, you're telling me that you're now sacrificing to achieve something, but isn't that really just, you made the choice that you had to pay that cost to get it? I don't understand. So,
That's
so in regards to your what's security, I don't know.
yeah.
I mean, when you really stop and think that you can't control tomorrow at all, there's no guarantee you're going to even wake up tomorrow. So what's security? The one thing I know I can count on is change. I know that that no matter what, no matter how good it is, at some point something's going to go bad, or not what I want it to be. That too, what's good, what's bad. I believe, and I don't always do the best to remember these things, but for one thing, and this will sound really morose, I tell this to people all the time, and they're like, boy, you're dark. But I as I'm, going with through life, I just realize everything dies. What I mean by that is, and again, this is just my opinion, my, viewpoint, is that I believe that everything and everybody is a story. If you're always in the same story, you never get to make a new one. You never get to get new experiences. You never get to meet new people. You never get to go new places. So why are we always so fearful? Why do we mourn what we've lost when someone dies instead of celebrating that we had the time with them?
Mm-hmm.
To me, I don't know. You know what I mean? Shouldn't we be happy for what we had instead of now grieving for what we lost? You know, I don't mourn when I put a book down. I go, wow, I
Mm-hmm.
really enjoyed that book. And maybe somewhere down the line, I might pick it up and read it again, but I'm going to go read another book. And it may not be as good as that book. It might be even better. It might be
Mm-hmm.
more amazing. It might even tell me a better story. and you really think about it, every experience you have, all it is just information so that you can tell someone else a story about that experience that happened. And that's all, that's why I think professional wrestling is what it is. It's because we're just telling stories and everybody loves
Hmm.
stories.
This answer, I love this answer. I firmly agree with you. Like, our life is a story. Our story is a life. And
Yeah.
your idea of what is security, as you're talking, and I'm thinking back of your book, if I were to answer that based on listening to you talk and reading your book, something comes to me of like knowing myself. And as I think through your chapters in your book, whether it's force reinvention, whether it's never giving up, it seemed like the more you got to know yourself, the more security you were creating yourself, as opposed to relying on money or the federation allowing you to sign a contract, etc.
Yeah. Yeah. There are how many billions of people in the world? You can only control one person.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I can control me. Nobody, I feel, just my opinion, I don't think any one single person makes me happy, sad, angry, secure. No one does. I do.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I mean, it'd be wonderful for me to be totally 100% in control of those emotions that I can't control. But when I stop and I remind myself of that, then a lot of stress, a lot of pain, a lot of discomfort, a lot of insecurity goes away.
Mm-hmm.
Does it all go away? No, because I'm not that in tune or that in touch. But that's why sometimes I don't necessarily, I think, overreact. I think that's why a lot of people look at me and they think he's very stoic. And it's like, not really. I just, let's see how this goes.
Mm-hmm.
See where it plays out. You know, this could be the drizzling shits, or it could be start of something pretty cool. You know,
But
you never know. I mean,
and
if I had have stopped, it's easy to say this now, after 40 plus years, but if I'd have stopped at any one point along the way and just quit, I'd have never gotten to go the places I've gone.
jeez,
I never would have gotten to see the things I've seen. I never would have gotten to experience the things I've gotten to experience. I never would have met the people that I've met, had the relationships that I've had. You know, were they all good? Nah, some of them weren't awesome at all.
mm-hmm.
But there's also part and parcel of my responsibility of the decisions I made that play a role in some of those. That you know, because you're not going to get anything for free. So you know, so what do you do? I mean, yeah, you take the bad with the good and you move on. I guess.
This controlling how we think and controlling how we react. It's such an important thing. And your story, or your answer here really points towards, yeah, it's in us to control that.
Yeah, but we
All
can't. And you
we
got to accept that.
we
You
can't.
got to
Or
just, you got to know, face up. Look, you're just gonna, it's not gonna be perfect. It's not gonna be ever
Mhm.
ideal, and you're just gonna, and sometimes you're gonna be a little more hands-on and in control, and sometimes you're just gonna let fate take the wheel, and you know, but as long as at the end of the day, you're just gonna have a great story. So
I, as a guy who has a voice that sounds like it can crush me, and your hand could probably break my skull in two pieces, I'm going to ask you a question about your answer. Makes me sound like Al practices the practice of surrender. Am I getting this wrong? And when I say surrender to
yeah,
the, like, I mean, I've tried surfing a few times. If I don't
right,
surrender to the power of the wave, it's
right.
going to topple me and take me over. Um, what do you think when I say surrender, like as what you're talking about? Like sometimes we do have to surrender to the external, the
I think
waves,
so. Yeah,
and learn how to ride it when it comes.
I think you just have to, yeah, you have to, for me, take life to a degree where, yeah, you just write it as it comes. There's no, I mean, yeah, we should do, the common sense things, the responsible things. I'm not saying that you just live irresponsibly and devil may care, you know, but, uh, I think, we try to control too much.
Yes.
And then that's what causes so much between that and, if you really sit and you watch what you're inundated with as far as commercials are concerned and things, because I call it the group psychology or how to control a mass of people. The two easiest emotions to operate are, fear and anger. Well, if you really pay attention to commercials that are on TV and the radio, on, the internet, etc. You're just inundated day in and day out with, well, you're not enough. You don't read enough. You don't walk enough. You don't exercise enough. You don't make enough. You don't travel enough. You don't vacation enough. You don't save enough. You don't this enough. It's like, well, no wonder I'm sitting here, freaking out. And now I have to take anxiety drugs or to handle and mitigate some of this. And and we are a species that believe to some extent or another, all of us, that we have some kind of control over almost reality itself, and you really don't. I mean,
The greatest illusion.
yeah, I mean, that's, we're all worried about, do we live in a matrix, in a simulation, and to a point of manifestation really becoming more and more popular. And it's like, I don't think the world works that way. I wish it did.
Mm-hmm.
But if I'd sit here and just, I'd be thinking of, I'd be manifesting a pond full of cold coins like Scrooge McDuck, where I'm just back
Swimming in the coins.
yeah,
You talk about like we're inundated with this. You're not good enough, or you can't do this. I know there's a quote. I can't really remember word for word from your book, but it was something about, you said it was one of your life lessons
mm,
sections. But if you
yeah.
want it bad enough, you'll find a way.
Yes.
And it,
If you
you're,
don't, you'll find an excuse.
you'll find an excuse. And your
Mhm.
story really spoke loudly to me, is that you had this massive desire to be a professional wrestler.
Yeah,
Yet there is this system that seemed like there was some gatekeeping. It's hard to get
sure.
to.
Yeah.
Many stories saying you're not good enough, Al. You can't get in. You can't get in. But yet you found yourself in. How did you manage all that? You're not good enough. You can't get in, can get in, but yet still stay fire or committed to plan A, getting
Well,
in.
there was a point, a crisis of faith. Um, God, it was years later, because, um, my goals when I got in were, I wanted to, and I honestly, these were just this simplistic. I wanted to be able to do this for a living, make a good living and be able to do this and nothing else. So, which I've been able to do for 40 plus years. So I'm like,
Well, that's a win.
that's a win. And there've been times I've made more money, and there've been times I haven't made nearly as much. Oof. But
That was a big sigh there. Woof.
yeah, and then I wanted to make a name for myself that would last beyond my time in the business, and I wanted to honestly wanted to have moments or matches that people would remember, create an experience. And I feel like I've done all three of those to some degree or another, you know. And so I guess maybe you can consider me successful in the sense that I got what I wanted. As far as when I first started out, I was like, I want to do those three things, you know. Maybe I should have put in there, make tons of money too, but and then maybe that would have been even better.
Question on that. What
yeah.
happens if makes tons of money meant you had to remove one of the three that you got?
Then I wouldn't have done it. I eat, not because I don't care. I mean, money is a necessity, unfortunately, but it was never the motivating factor. Fame was never the motivating factor. It's nice, it's flattering, but I was never compelled by those two factors. I was compelled to do it because I was compelled to do it. I just desperately wanted to do it and felt like it was the avenue for me to do. So, that might sound like a cop out, but it quite honestly, it's not. I mean, that's pretty much,
40-year career. I mean, you did it. It's not a cop out. So I'm curious about the money part there, you say, and a specific point in time, if I get this right, you signed a contract with the WWF with Vince McMahon for $1,200 for a 12-month period.
Yeah.
At that point in time, are you thinking about money at all when you're signing this? Because, I mean, it doesn't seem like that's a lot per hour. Or are you just thinking, hell, this is an opportunity?
Yeah, I wasn't thinking about the money. I didn't go, oh, it's only $1,200, because I was never guaranteed anything when I started. Like, there were plenty of nights, because like, that's the one thing that the average person doesn't understand, is that if you're an entertainer of any sort, you're an athlete, you're a musician, you're an actor, you're a comedian, you're whatever, you're never paid for the task. Okay. You're paid for the amount of people that show up to see you do the task. So a good analogy, because I always have to try to think of ways that I can explain this. I need you to chop wood. I'm going to pay you $30 for every cord of wood you chop for me. Okay. Now you can do 3 cords of wood in a day. It'll take you probably an hour each time to cut the wood. You'll make $90 for the day. Not bad. Chopping wood. I'm going to take the wood and sell it. All right. That's how the world works. You're going to chop it for me at $30. I'm going to sell it for 100. So I'm going to make 70 off of every cord of wood. That's typical business. You chop the wood, I sell the wood, I make 70, you make 30. Why? Because I'm supplying you the wood. We're not going to go into my overhead of that. I got to buy the wood and all these other things, so really I'm not making $70. I'm probably only making 40. So I'm making $10 more than you for each cord. All right. Here's where we change it though. I don't know why, and I can't explain it. People like to watch you chop wood. Good for you. But I'm going to build an amphitheater so that people could buy a ticket at $10 a ticket, and I'm gonna put 1,000 seats in there. And for whatever reason, you are really popular, and I can sell 1,000 tickets for people to come watch you chop wood. And brother, you're selling out every hour that you chop wood.
The shirt must be off then.
It's Yes, the shirt is off. Yeah. Yeah. You still have the toque, but you don't have the flannel. So I'm making $10,000 on every show. So I'm making $30,000 a day of you chopping wood. Should you get paid for that? No,
No,
because
I'm
you
still
didn't
doing the task.
agree to be compensated for based on how many people showed up to see you.
Mm-hmm.
You agreed to the task. So we can either do it one way or we can do it the other. And now the one way, there's risk. What if nobody shows up to see you?
Mm-hmm.
Or what if people start to slowly lose interest? What are you going to do? How are you going to reinvent yourself? It's a lot tougher because now you're competing, because down the road, someone now got the same idea and they opened up chopping wood, and they've got a guy that people are now starting to take a little more interest because, you're a product, and as a product, you have a shelf life. What are you going to do? How are you going to reinvent yourself? But you have to come up with that. It's not my responsibility. I am just supplying the amphitheater and the wood and the X. You are having to do everything else to maintain that audience. Or do you just play it safe and be paid for the task? That's the other thing that's different for me than it is for the average person. The average person goes and gets paid for a task, there's nothing wrong with that at all. One of the most awesome things, though, is that you can show up at work and, what, I didn't have that much sleep last night. I'm just going to put in, instead of 100%, I'm going to put in about 40 today. You're still going to get 100% of your money for that day. If I show up and I don't put in 100%, there's a good chance that whatever I sold that audience and that experience that they were expecting, they didn't get, they may not come back again.
Mm-hmm.
So every time I go out there, I don't have a choice. My livelihood depends on me giving them that experience and investing 100% effort in it every single time. Otherwise, I may not be guaranteed that I'm going to get 100% of my money.
Hi, it's Shaun. I know I'm breaking into the conversation just for a moment. There's good reason. If you're here, it means you care about living with more purpose, more meaning, and deeper connection. And that's exactly what the You Potential podcast is all about. When you hit that subscribe button, conversations like this, the ones that challenge you to think differently and open to new possibilities, keep showing up to you every week. And when you share this episode with someone you care, you're not just passing along a podcast. You're giving them a chance to reflect, to grow, and maybe even to reimagine what a good life can look like for them. So please take a second, subscribe, share it with a friend. Let's spread the conversations that truly matter. Now back to the show.
As you're saying this, it makes me think of something I say to my kids all the time is we can live a black and white life or live in full color.
Mm-hmm.
And this this example of hey, I got to reinvent myself and I got to be there 100% in the ring makes me think of living life in a full color. And we do get this choice. Living in full color or deciding to get in the ring and be 100% requires reinvention. In your book, I liked the many different layers and facets of reinvention you had. Talk to us about the head. That was, from what I see, a part of the reinvention. How did you decide to come up with the head as a reinvention tool?
I had signed a contract with WWF at that time. It was for 2 years. And I didn't realize a large part of what I was missing, because at the times that I was the most successful were the times that I was the most describable. I was the most relatable. I had not learned that lesson of selling who I was. I was very much about selling what I do. I would sell the intent very well, sell the consequence, but I would ignore the who. So it's very difficult to sell me. the more that I was describable, the more that I was relatable, the more successful I was. So I kind of realized it without realizing it. I was very frustrated, had a bad attitude. I knew from a business standpoint that I had to leave WWF to give a new impression. If I stayed, I would stay in the place that I was at, and the impression that I had made would remain. So I tried to quit. I sent in a request for a release, and they rolled my contract over for another year, and which I should be flattered that they valued me that much that they were willing to do it, which did not make me happy, obviously. And there were several revelations that came out of that, both professionally and personally. And that was where I really started to understand that I was pointing the finger at others. And the old saying about there are still three more pointing back at you. And I realized I was the one thing in the equation I could control. I could not control them, anyone else. I could not control opinions, thoughts, ideas. I could control me. So I knew I needed to leave. And so I got lucky because they were, at the time, WWF was working quietly with a little upstart promotion called ECW in Pennsylvania with Paul Heyman at the helm. And a buddy of mine named Chris Candido, who had left earlier, much for a lot of the same creative reasons, and went there, was now kind of Paul's right-hand guy, went on my behalf to Paul. Paul went to Bruce Pritchard, who was the head of talent relations at the time, and they put me on loan. I was still under contract with WWF. They put me on loan to ECW. And I knew going there, I was going to have to reinvent myself. I was going to have to, my plan 100% was I have to go there, make myself a star so that Vince would either pay to get me back. At the time, Eric Bischoff with WCW would pay to steal me, or Paul Heyman would pay to keep me. And I knew that was the absolute necessity. I had to make myself a star. And so when I arrived in ECW, that I knew that there was a fan base there that was aware of me as Al Snow prior to WWF and the Leaf Cassidy persona. And I knew that, I just assumed they would know. At that time, I was maybe 13, 14 years. I've been wrestling, and I figured anybody had been doing something that long for that period and not really what I termed was success would be, frustrated, and which I was. And and I knew that if you were a fan from WWF and you saw me as Leaf Cassidy, I was kind of always happy and over the top. I figured anybody that was that happy had to emotionally be unstable. So I set about trying to show and demonstrate that I had had a nervous breakdown, and tried all kinds of different things. At the time, I was reading a lot of books on psychology, really abnormal. There was a book on abnormal psychology, what they call, I don't know what's abnormal. And there was a case study in there about a woman who had schizophrenia. And she had what they titled as transference, meaning she heard voices from things, inanimate objects, but she thought they were crazy, not her. They had the problem, not her. She was transferring her illness outward, never internalizing. And I was fascinated by the idea that she maintained she was perfectly mentally healthy, and that everything that she heard the voices from were the ones that were the issue. So I was in the back one night at an arena, at ECW Arena. It was where they had, at that time, it looks beautiful now. They put a lot of money into that place. Back then, it was So one half of it, they made the Mummer Parade floats for the Mummers Day Parade in Philadelphia. And there were all kinds of junk laying around. And I found a styrofoam head. And, you know, I remembered we were in the car. It was myself, Sid Vicious, Bob Holly, and Mick Foley. And Mick had a styrofoam head that he would carry the Mankind leather mask on to retain its shape. And one of the guys had gotten a hold of it and had chipped a piece out of the mouth part. And he was talking to it like it was his girlfriend, like Elaine. He called her Elaine. He was going to take it to the hotel room and, you know, do all kinds of weird things. He was just doing it to crack us up in the car. And I remembered that. And I remembered the lady with the case study. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to take this head. It was at the time when I first started, it was just a styrofoam head that I would bring out and treat it as if it's a real person. And it has multiple personalities in there, you know, and I'm going to, you know, they're crazy, I'm not, type of thing. And the wrote help me on it, on the forehead. So that's a cry for help internally. Me thinking it's their way of thinking, you know, making people think I kidnapped them and asking for help. And then I did one on my own forehead that I never acknowledged, which was always back so you could see it normally in the mirror, which was an internal cry for help because I wanted, you know, assistance. And so what, you know, I had a catchphrase, which was, what does everybody want? What's everybody need? What does everybody love? And everybody thought it was just a double entendre, and nothing could be further from the truth. If you really pay attention, when I do it or when I did it, I would start to get a little angry or I would do it more forceful. The reason why was I was setting up, and I never discussed it with Vince, and I probably should have. I was setting up a way that I could then get jealous of the head, because what does everybody want? They want to be needed and loved and liked and be the star. And here I am, somebody so desperately trying to do it. But what do you still love? Not me. Love the head. And at some point I was going to get jealous of it. And then, like with typical wrestlers, where they attack each other in the back and they beat each other up, I was going to start doing those things with the head, you know, and then of course the head getting revenge, which was me subconsciously doing the stuff where I would have blackouts in, you know, to explain it, where I'd set myself up to fail, you know, and it would be because the head was performing those acts, which would drive more. And then it got deeper, where I was going to start bringing out heads that represented different emotions, you know, that would not say help me on the forehead. I had one that after the Brood, which was Edge and Christian and Gangrel, they were doing this like kind of lost voice gimmick, like a vampire thing. It was really cool.
I remember that.
And they had, you know, they were giving people what they called a bloodbath, which was where they literally dumped a bucket of blood, like Carrie. And they had dumped it on me the one week. And then the following week, I came back with the Fear Me head, which was a mannequin head. I had one eye cut out of it and painted black so it would look more pronounced on TV. Had Fear Me written across both my head, and had black electrical tape around its mouth, like it couldn't talk. Its head was shaved. It looked pretty gruesome. And you know, and then I continued to wear the bloody clothes. I never washed them from when I got the bloodbath, so like it made me snap and go a different, darker direction. And I never had the conversation with Vince what I was really attempting to do, and he was like, "Don't bring that head around anymore." So I was like, "Okay." So
He said, "Don't bring the head around."
Don't bring that one around.
Oh, that one, yeah,
Yeah. But I never took the time to explain to him what it was I was doing.
yeah.
Because I wanted, you know, to help me, fear me, love me, hate me, different heads to demonstrate different personality aspects that would then tell different stories for different reasons.
Truly fascinating. truly fascinating. On the surface, someone could see it as a head, hearing the layers of the depth of the knowledge that you have in creating this. It speaks to like the human condition that we all have, these fears,
Sure.
these emotions going through. I'm curious, as you're creating this, I can't
Uh,
help but think earlier you talked about wrestlers, how like their personas and the way they hold themselves is a bit of a reflection of their own
oh, yeah.
personalities, not
Oh,
fake.
without a doubt. Yeah, it was me.
I was gonna say,
100%.
when you brought
Yeah.
head in, did it give you permission to be more of yourself?
Yeah. And it gave me permission to be snarky and to release a lot of that vent up frustration verbally through the head, speaking through it and basically venting that and making comments. And that's why quite honestly, that's why it worked, was because you could 100% believe, you know, and if you would have asked people back then, if I were truly insane, 9 out of 10 would tell you that I was clinically out of my mind, you know, because they believed. That's what I always tell everyone this, that I was, made a career, made a lot of money out of convincing millions of people that I could knock another human being unconscious with a plastic head. I can't do that. I can't even knock out a toddler. I've tried, and all that does is get weird conversations with the parents that are going to call the police. So they usually get pretty upset when you attempt it. The kid just falls down and cries, and then gets up and runs around.
Terrible situation.
Oh, it's like, look, Big Show fell down and stayed down. Your kid got up. Call the cops on him. He's not sick. But yeah, that's, and then, we live in a day and an age where like now we used to do this all the time. And that was, we never violated the precept of what it is we sold to you. So what do I mean? I'm not an actor. I'm a professional wrestler, which means I sold you this guy. Well, when you see me in public, I need to be that guy. I can be that guy, volume turned down, but I got to be that guy. So that it was awkward. There were times it was uncomfortable, but I would travel by myself. When I would travel by myself, I'd go in, to a restaurant, and I would, for lunch or dinner or breakfast, and I'd sit the head across the table, and I'd order 2 meals, and I'd sit there and argue with them and, have conversations. And there were lots of times that people would, waitresses and managers would come up and, you need to leave. You're making the other staff and customers uncomfortable. And I'm like, well, they're making us uncomfortable. So who's going to wait? And they're like, well, we're going to call the police. And I go, well, I guess I got to go. Can you box this up? And, and away I go. Why did I do that though? Because if you came in with your wife and your kids and you see me there, and of course you're going to get freaked out, right? But you're going to remember. And so now next Monday, I come dancing out on TV, and you're flipping through the channels. You go, that's that lunatic that was at Denny's. Oh my God, he was at Tim Hortons. And you run, you go, honey, come in here, bring the kid. Remember him? Oh my God, yeah. He's really crazy. Now you believe anything I do.
Yeah.
Because you believe in me. And trust me, I did a lot of when I think back, I'm like, how did I get away with that? Well, it was because they believed I was crazy.
It seems to me that they believed, but yet perhaps this is an inflection point when you get the head, is that you really started to believe in you.
I always believed in me.
Always, okay.
Yeah.
Was it a deeper level when you brought the head, like a more Al coming
Just
out?
gave me an outlet. And you know what
outlet.
It allowed you to be able to describe me to your friends and family.
That's right.
In a sentence or less. You want to be a star, not famous. Anybody can be famous. A mule can be famous. It takes nothing these days, especially these days, to be famous. Literally nothing. Anybody can be famous. Anybody can be a celebrity. And it means dick. Don't mean nothing. If you want to be a star, because once you're a star, you're always a star. You want to be a star? Can they describe you in a sentence and less to their friends and family? Hey, there's this guy. He's crazy. Comes out with a head. We never know what he's going to do. What? Yeah, he's a wrestler. And he does what? He talks to this head. He thinks it's real. Oh man, you tune in.
I text my brother. We used to watch WWF together all the time. That you were coming on. He's like, "Do you think you'll bring the head?"
They're taking a nap right now.
They're taking it.
Otherwise, I couldn't get them to shut up. You know what I mean? I couldn't get a word in edgewise. They just constantly run their mouths.
Did you have to consciously decouple yourself from the relationship you had with Head?
There were a couple times, yeah.
Yeah.
It started one time in ECW. I thought I'd joking around because their hair was starting to get a little matted and kept them in the bag, which they don't like to be kept in the bag, but
No, I can
it's
imagine.
the way we travel. I'm not buying them a seat on the plane. We've had that argument. So this is like seatbelts, not gonna hold men. And they act like they can't breathe in the overhead bin, but I'm like, if you're up there yelling, I know you're breathing, so shut up. And then they worry about TSA, going through the security and like, oh, I'm going to get cancer. No, you're not. It's not like a dentist. Shut up. But they, I took it in the shower in the hotel because Lance Storm and Jerry Lynn we were all rooming together. And so I started talking loud enough for them to hear. And I was like, oh, it got real surreal for a moment and really weirded me out. And I was like, I'm never doing that again. I'm not doing it. Because it definitely got a little trippy. And I was like, nope, time to stop.
What did they think when you let The Rock touch them?
I shouldn't have. That was the wrong thing to do at the wrong time. I should never. Paul had told me that, and I didn't realize the pertinence of it or the importance of it until later, which you learn, but I should never have allowed that. Should never have allowed it. It's, he's honestly in the ring, he's the only one that ever did. Other than that was another mistake. I had the first tag match I had back, which was with Brian Christopher and Scotty 2 Hotty, and Jerry Lawler had convinced me it was a good idea to let them pin the head with a Head and Shoulders bottle. Thought it was funny, and it was the wrong thing to do. It's like Jake Roberts and the Snake. Like nobody ever touched the bag, and no one ever touches the head. No one, because if it were real, and that's my connection to reality. Then once you touch it, well, then now it's no longer. It's not about me wrestling you. It's now I'm fighting you because you're touching. You're touching my child. You're touching my wife. You're touching my best friend. You're, my confidant. And I'm not taking the risk that they might like you more than they do me. So,
why do you think it was The Rock that you let?
Well, Pat Patterson had, we were wrestling, and Pat had, came up with the idea, which was to get The Rock, give him a momentary place where he would get him over. And I was too short-sighted and didn't realize that I should have said no, and that really, as I've come to older and again, more experience, and not just in wrestling, but there are definitely places and times you should say no. You should, and you shouldn't, and no should be enough. You can provide an explanation, but you should be aware of why, there are places that it's just not the right thing at the right time for the right reason. And no, we're not doing that. Not trying to be difficult or, or a prima donna or anything. It's just knowing there's always a place and a time to do things. And when it ain't, then you shouldn't, because it was bad business. I shouldn't have done it.
Well, we all have those moments, not letting The Rock touch our heads, but those moments or we should have done it different. But hey, it's learning lessons on this journey of life.
I don't regret them. It happens. And then that's really, for me now at this place and point in time in my life, they've all been instrumental in what I'm doing right now, which is, part and parcel into OVW and into developing and training young talent. I've been doing that since, since the 90s, and then for WWE as part of the developmental program in the partnership that they have with OVW from the early 2000s until they ended that relationship. And then I did it again with TNA. And then I came back and, bought into the company and doing it again. And, and the way I explain it to everyone is I'm not teaching you anything based on what I know, because I still learn constantly all the time. But I'm teaching you where I've made my mistakes so that you can have the ability to avoid those, hey, don't touch that, it's hot type of thing. How do you know? Well, I touched it and I got burned. So I'm going to tell you, or I'm going to advise you, don't touch that. That stove's hot. That's how your parents do. Had it when you were a kid, and they were like, don't touch that. That's hot. And that's where, I've come to realize there are times with my kids, don't touch that. That's hot. Okay. Well, it's not going to kill you. So you're not going to enjoy that experience. I bet you won't be doing it again.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead. Touch the
Give it a
stove.
try. Natural
Go ahead.
consequence.
Yeah. Usually my kids have come to learn through experience where I go, yeah, okay, go ahead. Do it. I go, you know what? No, that's all right.
I know that one, Dad. I'm not doing
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, I'm not falling for that again.
As we start to land the plane of the conversation with OVW, it seems like when you purchased it here, this last time, another reinvention in Al's journey from a wrestler doing it in the ring to now a leader. And specifically, as I'm reading about you getting ready, I was really impressed by the standard of care that you're approaching this vocation of wrestling, and how much you want to have a best practice like other professions.
Sure. Yeah, I think, because let's face it, wrestling is very maligned, very disrespected. Some of it we earn ourselves in our behavior, and still being kind of carny and circusy. But at the same time, the art of professional wrestling, quite honestly, as far as, entertainment art forms go, there aren't many that have lasted as long and are, I shouldn't say last as long, in the form that it is now, and have been as successful as they are.
Mm-hmm.
What do I mean by that? Well, when, everything in the entertainment, the show business is a business. So is it, and it's a business of how many people are going to show up to see whatever it is you're doing. Well, if you think long before television was invented, professional wrestling was drawing huge audiences, long before, WWE became a not just national, but international and multi-billion-dollar concern that fills stadiums. Professional wrestling was filling stadiums before that, baseball stadiums. You can go on YouTube, and I think it's 1961. Somebody's going to fact check me and go, well, it was 62 now.
It doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It was the early 60s. How about that? All right. And Pat O'Connor is defending the world title against Buddy Rogers in the main event at Kaminsky Park in Chicago. And they drew, one report was 39,000 people and another was 43,000 people.
Wow.
And that's not a random thing. For decades, that professional wrestling promoters, when wrestling was much more regional in the United States and in Canada, they were drawing, crowd audiences of thousands of people, and not just once in a while. There's the track record of the promotion in Memphis, Tennessee, that, they went on a hot streak and they were selling out the Mid-South Coliseum, which Again, somebody's going to go, well, it wasn't that many seats. Well, you know, it was this. I don't know the number personally. I don't live in Memphis, but it was like, I think 10 or 11,000 seats in, you know, the Mid-South Coliseum. And they sold it out every Monday, 52 weeks a year for 5 years straight. That's insane.
It's wild.
Every single Monday, every week, 52 weeks a year, 5 years. Crazy. You know, that you have something that would capture that many people's, have them do an emotional investment. Because let's face it, at the end of the day, your job as an entertainer is always ultimately it's to entertain, it's to do whatever it is you're doing. But really, here's your responsibility, because if you don't fulfill this, you have no value.
Mm-hmm.
Can you motivate someone to leave the comfort, safety, and security of their home, get in a car, make the effort to drive to a building, pay nowadays to park your car, which is ridiculous, then now pay to get into a building, now to sit in seats not one average human being wants to sit in, near other people they don't want to sit around, to pay for food they don't want to eat, to watch you do your job. Because when you really break it down, that's your responsibility. That's what you're out there doing. You're out there to create and make something that gives such an emotional connection that it motivates people to take that step to leave their home. That's why Tom Cruise, it's not because he's, you know, I always use Arnold Schwarzenegger because he's an awesome guy, but let's face it, he was not the Sir Laurence Olivier of action films.
Mm-hmm.
You know, he's an actor in the loosest sense of the word. Why did he get to make so many movies? Why is he so famous? Because people left their home and bought a ticket to pay to see him in the movie theater. That was his job. Job wasn't to be an amazing actor. Job was to be an attraction that motivated people to leave their home and come pay to see.
The storytelling. I mean, this is it's really. Sorry, I cut you off there because my brain is just like about to blow up about how impressive professional wrestling is, and
it is pretty incredible. I'm not saying that just because it is.
It's fascinating. Like, I'm ingrained in hockey. I'm Canadian. By the way, I appreciate a few Canadian comments with Tim Hortons and Lumberjack that I caught. Yeah. But like, it's different than hockey because like everyone has their own personas and it's live, and I see my story through whichever wrestler that I most identify with in terms of my lived experience, and I'm gonna pay for part, etc. All the things you said, and I'm gonna show up every Monday night for that 11,000 audience that you talked about. It's really fascinating as you're talking, and I'm gonna take a little bit of a risk here. As you're saying, it's not really the wrestling, but to make that draw. Mm-hmm. Hulk Hogan doesn't strike me as a guy doing backflips off the top ropes and the most, I'm watching some words here, athletic wrestler, but man, I like Hulk Hogan is wrestling. And it seemed like he knew that art of drawing.
He did. There are a lot of notable people that I'd say the top three in the wrestling business would be, when you go back to the invention of television, and the real first professional wrestling television star was Gorgeous George. Now, what a lot of people don't know, so Gorgeous George was a very accomplished wrestler, like legitimate wrestler. Did you see that side of it? God, no. Why? Because no one bought a ticket to see him wrestle. They bought a ticket to see him be Gorgeous George. There's the debate of whether Hulk Hogan could wrestle. He can. He could. He was trained by in our business, it was a catch wrestler named Hiro Matsuda. They're called hookers. They hook a hold, they hook a joint. They're nasty guys. And Hulk was brought in, Terry was brought in at a point in time in the business that, you know, you carried that reputation of the person who brought you into the business everywhere you went. And if you did stuff that violated the business, well, it came back on the guy that brought you in, that trained you. So they're going to make sure you know what you're doing. So the idea that he couldn't is absurd. The best example I can give you of this, though, and it's pretty modern day, you can go on YouTube right now, and I want you to go watch Stunning Steve Austin. Okay? I want you to watch Stunning Steve Austin in matches when he was in WCW or when he was in World Class in Dallas. And I want you to see just that guy was a machine. Athleticism, the ability to move, probably 260, 270, and moving like he's a buck 80, you know, and for 20, 30 minutes at a time. And his physical ability, insane. Now I want you to go watch Stone Cold Steve Austin and compare the two. Stone Cold Steve Austin, he would go out, punch, kick. Could he do all the stuff that Stunning Steve did? Absolutely. Why didn't he? Because here's why. He sold you that he was a beer drinking, ass kicking redneck from Texas. How would you expect a beer drinking, ass kicking redneck from Texas to wrestle? Exactly the way he did. And the thing is, you believed that he was that guy because, let's be honest, that's him. That is who he is. Just turned way up. Okay. And he when he walked to the ring, he was a beer drinking, ass kicking redneck from Texas. When he was winning, he was that. When he was losing, he was that. When he walked out, he was that. When he spoke on the mic, he was that. At no point in time did you never get what you paid to see, which was a beer drinking, ass kicking redneck from Texas that occasionally would slip off his paws. And you bought and believed in him 100%. Another really good example of that belief is The Undertaker. Now think about this, because you've never probably stopped and thought about this. Professional wrestling is supposed to be that these guys are prize fighters, no different than boxing or MMA. You're in a competition, and the governing body is like the WBC, the World Boxing Council, or WBA, the World Boxing Association, or UFC, which governs, and sanctions fights and matches. WWE is a sanctioning body of a competitive, matchmaking professional wrestling organization. The Undertaker's dead. That's what they told you. They sold you that. And you, at no point in time, because he was that good, did you question it. You didn't doubt it, to the point that when at an In Your House pay-per-view back in the 90s, okay, this was like 95, 96, he and Mick Foley had a buried alive match. Mick Foley buried him in dirt, and a lightning bolt struck the grave that you couldn't even see in the building. You could only see it on TV. It exploded, and his hand came up, and no one went, hey, wait a minute. I don't know. Then continued to be an attraction, and let's face it, the only reason he could be an attraction is because you believe he was dead. He now all of a sudden is a motorcycle riding badass that's not dead anymore.
Yeah.
That's kicking ass and taking initials because he's moving way too fast for names, and you never went, oh, wait a minute, I thought he was dead. Then he went back to being dead, and you went, of course, why not? And he never violated what he sold you. He wrestled like a dead guy because that's the way you expected. When he was the motorcycle wrestling, badass, then he wrestled like a motorcycle riding badass. But he never, when he was in an airport, when he was in public, because he never had social media, he never did interviews, he never did any of that until he retired. And now he does it because now no longer is he having to worry about convincing you or violating what he sold you.
Every time when he's laying on the canvas, I
And
know the hair flicks up, and the
Yeah,
hair's going to flick up, but every time it happens, it's as if I didn't expect it.
right. And you're like,
He did it.
and that's the magic, that's the magic. And that's the one thing that it honestly, in spite of yourself, and my brother goes, well, wrestling's fake. And I'm like, well, congratulations, Murder, She Wrote. How long did it take to put the clues together, Angela Lansbury? People have known since the 30s, at least here in the United States and North America, that professional wrestling is predetermined. But why did thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people continue to pay to see it? Why is WWE such a major entertainment force, not just here, but globally, that you think the word's not gotten out? Well, I tell people all the time, in 1976, I'll never forget it. I proudly proclaimed to all of my family, listen, I love them all dearly. None of them are card-carrying Mensa candidates, so I love them. You know, none of them ran away with the circus. Nobody knew. But I would go, I want to be a wrestler. And you know what? Every one of them on both sides of my family said, on my father's and my mother's side, all the way up to my grandparents. Why do you want to do that? That's fake. What? How do you know? You know, seriously, really, you don't know? And they all told me unequivocally, why do you want to do that? That's fake. Never another answer. Okay. Except my mom, where when I would proclaim to her that, hey, I'm started training, I'm going to be a professional wrestler, she's like, are you trying to kill me? And I was like, you live in a ranch style home. There are no stairs, Mom. I can't push you down. So you're safe. So.
What did she think when you got those first contracts with the WWF?
Oh, it's funny because, you know, I've been doing fine, you know, struggling, but doing all right as a professional wrestler for years. And then, of course, now once you get on TV and people can see you,
Yeah.
I always knew. I always knew. And then before that, maybe not so much, even to the point where you might have some conversations like, you ever thought about quit playing around with this stuff and get a real job? You know, I'm like, it is a real job. I have real expenses. I get paid real money. It's not like I get paid in Monopoly money. But, so
when you were talking about the bags, like in a main card event, like the main wrestling event of the evening, if you win, is it like boxing? You get paid more? No. Okay.
No, you're paid strictly on how many people showed up to see you. So the rule had been, after expenses, the locker room gets a third of the gate. Now that's the locker room gets a third. Now, whomever or whatever sold the majority of that, meaning that's what really drew the audience, well, that they get the majority of that third. Okay. Usually it was a third of that third. And then it starts to go down the line as to how much more of a factor, you were and how many people showed up. And it's subjective, but like when I first started out, I would be plus one other match or additional all-stars or other exciting bouts. So my name wasn't even on the poster. That I had no name. So I was always last in line, which meant, it was either next to nothing or nothing by the time everyone else had divvied up what was coming in, And so you were very motivated to be, to work your way up, to be the attraction, to be the guy that everyone paid to see. That's kind of changed now. In one way, it's great for the performers, and another way, it's really bad for the audience, because there's no longer that artistic or creative risk taking, and the necessity in the competition between the performers to be the thing that's really driving the bus, that's really selling the tickets, and then once you get there, never being comfortable, never being secure, knowing that you're always looking over your shoulder because there's someone chasing you, wanting to replace you, and yeah, you're making good money now, but there's always a chance that if someone steps in front of you, you're not going to make that money anymore. So
was that for you like a realistic, like you had a quick ascent as when you got in, it seems like, and I understand you started making really good money. Is this a thing you're thinking about, is like, this isn't going to last forever, I should do something with my money? Or are you so ingrained with the creative aspect?
Usually with almost everything, you're so in the moment that you just don't You know, it's even today, but not nearly as much. It's hard to like, we don't have like the regular, like, how can I explain this? You are always looking to the next town, always looking to the next show, always looking, and you've got to literally be able to think 2 and 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 days, 6 weeks, 6 months, 6 years ahead. You know, um, even though the environment 6 years is going to be completely different than what it is now, the conditions, the circumstances, nothing's going to remain static. Nothing's going to remain the same. Uh, you know, so while you're doing what you're doing now, and that's even when you're in the ring. You know, what people don't appreciate, they all believe, and it's such a myth, and it kind of, and the reason it kind of frustrates me is it kind of belittles what really goes on. Like, people don't even comprehend what really is happening when they're watching something like that. It's all scripted. No, it's not. The really good stuff, like, there are a lot of the younger talent nowadays that really, here's what happens, all right? And then I'll explain the difference today, all right? And the reason that I say my opinion of why they do this is because they're not performing for you anymore. They're performing for each other, because only each other, they're the only ones that are going to notice any mistakes. They're going to know what to look for. You won't. It'll look like, you know, when you're attempting, as long as I'm still looking like I'm attempting to win, there's no way I could screw up. So they'll get together and they'll talk over, every detail, and they'll try to memorize it. You'll watch them separate, and they'll start to visually rehearse it in their minds. Some of them even start acting it out. It's like you're at a dance party for the deaf, because you can't hear any music, twitching and twitching, and like there's strobe lights going off or something. But then they get back, they refine, and they then separate, and they rehearse mentally again, and then they go out and they do it by rote. The real skill is to get together, you and I, and we know you're going to win, and we're trying to get this particular as high as we can. Okay, we're going to make them angry, we want them to warrior. They're going to come over the rail trying to stab one of us, right? We're always looking for the absolute highest point. To the point, to make that clear, like, we have a term, it's called to pop the audience, which is short for to pop their nut, get them to have an orgasm, emotionally have an orgasm, get them to come. That's where you make money. Okay, so what in that attempt, you and I will talk backstage. Maybe sometimes we won't. Maybe we'll talk. Maybe we'll do A, B, and C. Sure, yeah, and maybe we'll D and F after that, and then maybe G, H, I. Yeah, cool. Okay, that's the extent of it.
That's wild.
And then you go to the ring, and then if you do A, B, and C, great. If you don't, who cares? Because only you knew what you were going to do, and then you base what you're doing off of and pacing off of what the audience is buying into and reacting, and you go the direction and steer it the way you want it to go.
It is
and
incomprehensible to understand.
While you're in the ring and you're doing that, you also have to keep track of, all right, how much time am I supposed, when am I, this is only supposed to go 10 to 12 minutes. All right. How much time have I went? How much more do I have left? Are they on pace? Do I need to speed up? Do I need to slow down? Do I need to stay down longer, get up quicker? Do I need to be more aggressive, less aggressive? What you're evaluating constantly in the moment as you're being thrown. in the air to physically control yourself and to constantly protect not only yourself, but the other person, all of that, all happening at one time in 1 second.
It is truly remarkable. And when you're saying, like, yeah, people, you could break necks, you could kill
Oh, sure.
someone.
There's always a percentage of a chance that you could suffer a life-altering or life-ending injury when you get in the ring. It's always there. It's always omnipresent. Yeah,
It's
you know.
remarkable.
But you've got to be in that, you're living in that moment, trying to connect with your audience and manipulate them. And when you get to a certain experience level, then you can make people as a group, and the more you get, the easier it becomes. The hard part is when they're less anonymous. That's, I call it the psychology of anonymity. The more anonymous you can make an audience, the easier you are to manipulate. So much easier. If you're in a well-lit building and you can see your neighbor across the way, man, that's tough. For me to get a hold of you and make you react and make you forget and make you not self-conscious, tough to do. It can be done, but it's a lot harder than if you were in a half-darkened arena with 10,000 other people and nobody, you can potentially see it. Your neighbor can't see it. Well, man, I can twist you.
What is that like?
I can make you sit down, cry. I can make you laugh. I can make you do it.
What's that like, being in the ring and being able to make them cry, make them laugh?
It's the most incredible rush. It really is. And that's where it gets addictive for the guys. Because you're not just an athlete. You're a magician.
Yeah.
You're a soap opera star. You're a movie star. You're a rock star. You're all these things all at one time. And you're driving the bus. You're the guy that's doing it all. And it's pretty wild. I mean, it's amazing to do. And especially when you start to really become more adept at it, it can be very intoxicating. The best moments are, when you get another guy and you get this chemistry and shoot, like you don't talk. And when you're in there, maybe you tell jokes while you're doing it, but you're making everybody do everything you want them to do when you want them to do it, the way you want them to do it, as much as you want them to do it at the time, to take them to the place to where they. It's awesome.
Wow. Awesome. Al, I think I could talk to you all day.
Usually I can talk all day. So
you're an interesting individual with a fascinating story. Thank you so much for sharing it with us. As I sit here and think, I have a last question I've asked everyone, but I feel like what I am coming to not a conclusion, the summary of this conversation is, I said about that comment to my kids, we can live black and white life or full color. I asked you a question about, would you have taken more money but removed one of those three components? And I'm really seeing a guy who had no plan B, fought through a lot of struggle to get into the business, lots of heartache, lots of giving up, and it cost you things. But yet here you are, 41 years, still going. And as you shared a little bit of your career with me, it just sounds like it was fully deep, rich, living in full color. So thank you for that.
I've had a blast.
Yeah,
I have no regrets, none. I mean, I wish I knew then, like we all say, I wish I knew then what I know now. I could have capitalized and had a much greater impact and a much, longer career. But, that was obviously not meant to be. And I went a different path. And now I get the reward of helping young men and women and them pursuing their dreams and increasing the odds of the likelihood that they might be able to achieve it. The dream, of course, for anyone now is no longer as simplistic as what it was when I got in. It was, I just want to be able to do what I do for a living. And now, preeminently, it's well, I want to go to WWE. I want to go to WWE. And it's the sad thing is that if you just do the math, you have a better chance and a better turn to become an NFL football player and play on an NFL football team than you do to be on the main roster in WWE. Because I think when I Googled it, I think by the time you add up all the teams and all of the players, both starting lineup, backup, and then your reserve squad and all of that, you're looking at, time you add all that up over all the teams, it's like close to 1,700 possibilities that you could make a team. There's only anywhere from 100 to 150 between NXT, SmackDown, and Raw that have spots on, main roster. And then now the odds of you being one of the guys that gets featured on a regular basis on TV, now the odds of you being one of those guys that's now featured at the top, now you being one of those guys to even be at WrestleMania on the show, now you being one of those guys that is the thing that drives the bus at WrestleMania, odds are astronomical.
Yeah. Wow. I'm sneaking another one in here. You said you're helping people chase their dreams. What advice would you have for people who are chasing dreams, whether it's become professional wrestler or anything in life, balancing the dream and this damn pull that is distracting to get more money? Not saying not to go for it, but
just go do it.
Just go do it. Just go do it.
Why not? Listen, you're going to die.
Yeah.
Are you not? You're
Sure
going to die. We all are going to die. Do we know when we're going to die? No. Why not go? Why not just go and live life on your terms? And then, what do you have to lose? You really don't. You don't have anything to lose. What do you have to gain? Who knows?
41-year career.
What's success? What's failure? I think failure is that you never even try. Who says you can't do it? So why not? And even if you don't quite get the brass ring that you're imagining in your head, you're still doing it. You're still having fun. You're still, and really, I think that's the purpose of life, is that, you're supposed to enjoy it while you're doing it.
What's the point if we're not enjoying it, hey?
Yeah. You can't take, what are you going to take with you? You're going to take all that money. You take a big house, and you might have a bigger house than me, might have a better car. You know what? We're both going to have the same size box when we go in the ground.
Yours might be a little bigger. You look like a bigger man than me.
might be a little bit because I'm a fat ass, but
No. I got to peek at those biceps when your t-shirt were rolled up, and you're so true. We're all going in the same place. We might as well make the story of life one we want to tell.
Make it to what you got. Great stories, just, and I don't know. I mean, I am literally and have constantly did nothing more than just make it up as I go along. So, and I'm pretty happy. So.
Well, Al, thank you so much for sharing your story. For listeners who want to know more about the work you're doing, perhaps even the Netflix show, the wrestling company you own, etc., where would you point them towards?
If they want to watch Wrestlers, the documentary, beautifully done by on Netflix, they can go check that out on Netflix. It's still on there. It's called Wrestlers. It covers OVW and a lot of the trials and tribulations that we go through there and the young wrestlers have with the challenges. If you want to find out about OVW, you can go to obwrestling.com. We do live television every Thursday night. Outside of WWE and AEW, we're the only company, I think, in the world that does live weekly television. And we're actually second place as far as the longest running consecutive weekly episodic television in the history of the medium. Raw being number one, us being number two. If you want to follow me, you can follow me at The Real Al Snow on social media. That was prior to the blue check mark, because there were people that would try to, fake being me. And if you do, I'm not going to get upset. I'll just message you and go, like, aim the bar higher. I mean, really. I mean, why would you want to be Tom Cruise or, George Clooney? Guys that gets chicks, not me. And I just put up goofy jokes all the time on my social media. If you're interested in a book, my book Self-Help is still on Amazon.com. You can check it out. And what else? Jeez, I don't know. I think about this. So, yeah.
We'll include all those.
If they want to watch me in movies, they can go to Tubi right now. There's Homeless for the Holidays and Christmas movie, and Unnatural. It's a supernatural Western. I shoot a vampire. And
awesome.
Yeah. Quality entertainment.
We'll include all that in the show notes. The book, great read. Again,
thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your time.
Oh, no, thank you for having me. And I appreciate you giving me the time.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode on the You Potential Podcast with Al Snow. Wow. I hope you enjoyed that as much as me. Al is fascinating, and professional wrestlers, they are incredibly interesting. They are so athletic, they have a lot of charisma, they can tell stories, and as Al said, it really is the best live body theater there is. Beyond the wrestling, which is incredible, what really stood out to me in this conversation was Al's commitment to his dream, unwavering commitment through all the bumps, the bruises, the setbacks, and the moments when it had been way easier just to walk away and choose a different path. But he didn't. And that's what I really loved about his story. And even now, he can look back and smile and said, he did it. He lived a great career. He wouldn't change anything. And I think that's something many of us wrestle with. Pun intended there. We want meaningful, interesting lives. But when things get hard, uncertain, or uncomfortable, that's often when we pull back and we quit. And I know that from personal experience. But maybe, just maybe, part of living a good life on our own terms isn't about having certainty all the time, but choosing how to keep going when things get tough. My question for you this week is, when or what have you walked away from too early because it felt uncertain? Sit with it for a bit. Think about it. If this conversation resonated with you for any reason, please share it with someone you like, share it with someone you think who might also enjoy it, and please subscribe to the You Potential Podcast for more weekly conversations like this. Until next time, take care.